He was walking maybe like 4 or 5 steps behind me. It wasn't even like it was so far apart you could see that we weren't together. And there were these 2 girls who decided they were going to shoot their shot.
In the front of you.
They liked how he looked and they were going to shoot their shot or whatever. And he told them, he's like, no, I'm with my girl, you know, and they thought he was joking. And he said, no, this is my girl. And I turned around and I said hello. I was just trying to be polite. And the girl was like, so what this fat got over me?
This was the video that started it all.
Man, stop sleeping with overweight women. When you keep sleeping with them, you let them know that they could just give the bare minimum and don't take accountability for their weight.
So that's the video that my friend Vanessa shared with me that led to the conversation you're about to see. We started to have conversations about topics I could have never imagined. I think this topic is extremely timely right now considering all that's going on in the entertainment industry, particularly with Lizzo and her alleged fat shaming of her background dancers. In this video, you're going to hear her talk about her relationship with food, how it's impacted her relationships personally, how it's impacted her ability to get a job, and even something as simple as going out to dinner. Y'all ready? You good? Let's talk.
I think when people see overweight people, they automatically picture my 600-pound life. Mm-hmm. And that's not the way the average overweight person consumes food. I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to weight and how persons who are not overweight view people who have weight. But when it comes to the way people eat, you know, you expect a fat person to be eating a pizza and then eating a hamburger and then eating, you know, going to McDonald's and getting something and then wanting to cry about it and eat a whole bag of chips. That's not how most oversized or overweight people eat. We eat salads, you know, we eat healthy food.
So let me ask you a question then, because for the people who are going to be watching, they're going to say, well, if you're only eating fruits and salads and you are somebody who is, you know, who says that, you know, you grew up basically dancing and you work out, then they're going to say, well, why are you the size that you are?
I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you that I'm not somebody who thinks about my weight a lot. Well, let me back up. I never thought about my weight until other people started telling me that I was overweight. The trouble was people were telling me that I was overweight when I wasn't. And when you have all of your friends telling you that you're fat, you start to think as a 14-year-old, you're fat. Mm-hmm. You know, that plants a seed. It also doesn't help when you are starting to develop earlier than your cousins and stuff like that, and then you have your aunts calling you fatso. Some people may think they are terms of endearment, but they're actually triggers, and they're hurting you, and you don't see it or think about it until it's too late.
Because of your weight, you try to become, I suppose, unseen or just kind of small yourself up a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the ways you do that and why you feel the need to do it. Because I remember having the conversation with you over lunch and I was like, man, if someone offends you, you need to speak up. You need to, you know, assert yourself. Don't let nobody push you around just because you're a big girl. Like who, you know what I mean? You know, I always talk to you about that. But let's just talk a little bit about how you kind of small yourself up in certain situations.
It's the same way where you hear people say, well, you can't be ugly and have a bad attitude. You have to do one.
Pick a struggle.
Yeah. So when it comes to my weight, I didn't realize that I was doing it until people have pointed it out in recent years, you yourself included. If I'm going out, I make sure that I am a little more muted than what I used to be. And it's not like you go through painstaking effort to do that. It's something that just happens, and it happened along the way. I would make sure that before we go to a place, if it's not off the cuff, I check to see what the seating arrangements looks like, because I know I have hips, and I'm gonna make sure that those chairs don't have the handles, the side handles or the sidebars. Definitely gonna be reluctant to go into a restaurant that has plastic chairs, just because I've seen people break those chairs. And while it wasn't me, the first thing that goes to your head is, well, holy crap, that person looks smaller than me. They break the chair. What do you think is going to happen if I sit in it? Right. You know, how is that going to look? How embarrassing is that going to be? And so you wind up talking yourself out of experiencing something new, all because you had a trigger about a chair seating arrangement, you know? And I've done that on more than one occasion. Cancel going out with friends, cancel an event, just because I felt self-conscious about it. It's definitely the same thing when it comes to clothing. And don't get me wrong, I love this whole concept of body positivity and people wearing what they want to wear and feeling the way they want to feel. There's just some things, however, that plus size chicks should not wear. Just because they make it in your size doesn't mean you have to put it on. You know, when I go into a store, if I see something on the rack, I'm definitely going to try it on first before I just pick it up and carry it out. You know, and I think that's most women. And something might look nice on a rack doesn't necessarily look nice on my body.
Can I ask a question? There are some, I watch all sorts of videos and read articles of people who are overweight, and they talk about, you know, hating the shopping experience, hating going into certain, like, you know, your boutiques in the mall, that sort of thing, because they just know a lot of them aren't going to have their sizes, and, you know, they see all the cute outfits and they know they won't fit in it, and it's kind of triggering for them, or feeling as if they only have to go to the stores that cater to the big girls, but the clothing might not be as sexy or be as colorful or as vibrant or as nice. Is that something that you encounter when you go shopping, or what's that experience like for you? When you're shopping?
It takes a while to work up the nerve to actually go through a shopping experience, because there are those triggers. You see something that's really nice and you know it would look cute on you, but they don't have it in your size. Or the material, you have to be very mindful of materials. Right. Plus size girls don't wear linen. And if they do, that's a lot of linen that you would have had to have bought. It's very expensive. Yeah. Because it has no give. Jersey or polyester or spandex is better, just in terms of being able to be affordable and in terms of flow. And so there are 2 or 3 brands that, hands down, I will always purchase stuff from them, because I know they cover plus size women, and I'm going to gravitate to those stores just so I can avoid feeling like a loser, for lack of a better phrase. If I go into some place like a Forever 21 or someplace that says that they have plus size, but it's not really plus size. You know, they stuck this 2X or 3X on something that should have 110% been an extra large or maybe a large, you know, just to try to get persons into the store, you know. But I think clothing stores also need to be mindful of that. You don't want to try to just get people into the store. You
disappoint them.
Right. You want people to get in and actually be able to fit in what you have for them.
Shoes are another thing, and boots that we don't talk about, right? So you know, we focus so much on the clothing, but then there's also the shoe aspect for somebody who is bigger. So talk a little bit about that.
I hands down cannot wear boots that zip up. I would probably have to get those custom made, and I do not want to know what that price is. Definitely socks are better, but plus size women tend to need a wider size shoe, just because you may have petite feet. You may be a size 7. I personally am a size 11 and a half, 12 on a good day, but even size 6 feet swell.
Let me ask you something. How has your love life been affected? And you can, you know, this is a private, how should I say this? This is a personal question. Pardon me. This is a personal question. So, I mean, you know, feel free to stop wherever you need to stop, but, you know, just talk a little bit about, you know, how your personal life has been impacted, you know, dating life.
Oh Lord, my parents are going to see this, aren't they?
Don't tell them about the video. They won't see it. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, share it. And what you don't feel, just zip it up.
Sex is never an issue.
Oh, Jesus, you went there. Okay.
If you have a socket and somebody has a plug, it works. Sex is not the problem. Relations, long-term relations, that's a whole different ballgame. And that's the end goal. The end goal is you want somebody to spend time with, to spend relations with. But so the last guy that I actually dated, he was attracted to me because I was plus size.
Yeah, some guys are.
I, however, had my issues with my weight. And he flat out told me, you're making me uncomfortable in this relationship.
Yeah.
And he was like, and it's not because I don't love you. It's not because I don't want to be with you. But you being self-conscious about your weight, you not wanting to go out, you are making me self-conscious about your weight.
This reminds me, not to cut you off, have you ever watched Tyler Perry's Why Did I Get Married? The first one?
Yes.
Sheila, the character played by Jill Scott.
Yes.
And when she finally meets Troy and she's like putting herself down, and he's like, why are you doing that? Like, you making me uncomfortable? Yeah. That's what that reminded me of just now.
Sheila is a lot of women.
Damn.
Sheila is a lot of women. And a lot of men want to give love to women who are plus sized. But there is that block because some of us don't feel worthy about it. They don't feel worthy of having that kind of love because they feel less than, because they've been feeling less than for a long period.
Is that because another partner made you feel less than, or is it it's just in you because the world has made you feel that way?
I have been fortunate to never have experienced a guy put me down because of my weight.
That's great.
I've never had any guy tell me, oh, you need to lose this and yada, yada. I've never had that.
You're fortunate.
All been very, very supportive. If you want to exercise, go exercise. If you don't want to exercise, don't exercise. But they were fine with me. It was me who wasn't fine with me. And it took a while for me to figure that part out too.
You have women too who are uncomfortable when they see a guy who is into you, he loves you, he cares about you, but they just cannot understand. And this is something you and I spoke about, where they can't understand why you with this big girl.
Yeah, I've had same last guy. I remember distinctly one time we went out. There's a place in the Bahamas called Arawaki. We went out there, and he had this. He just had this thing about my butt. He always wanted to watch me walk.
'Cause you curvy. You have an hourglass figure and a big bungie.
So this one time I just obliged him, and he was walking maybe like 4 or 5 steps behind me. It wasn't even like it was so far apart you could see that we weren't together. And there were these 2 girls who decided they were going to shoot their shot.
In the front of you.
They liked how he looked and they were going to shoot their shot or whatever. And he told them, he's like, no, I'm with my girl, and they thought he was joking. And he said, no, this is my girl. And I turned around and I said hello. I was just trying to be polite. And the girl was like, so this fat got over me.
With you standing right there.
He's standing right there. Why? She don't look better than me. And he was like, well, right now she look and sound better than you. And he could see that I was getting ready to start tearing up. And so we just left. And he said, don't let them bother you. And I was like, it's a little too late for that, but you do have, I find that women are more cruel than men when it comes to being overweight. And again, this isn't everybody's journey. This isn't everybody's scenario. This is just mine. But, it's having those kind of encounters that make you reluctant to want to actually go out in the first place. It's easier to stay at home and avoid all of this.
You shared something, Vanessa, with me. It was a video of a woman on Tik Tok or something where she was talking about, I think it was you who shared it with me. It was like a stitch video with this gentleman who was responding, I suppose, to this woman who was talking about don't be dating fat girls because if you, and I'm going to put it in the video so you guys can see. Let me put it in right now, as a matter of fact.
Men, stop sleeping with overweight women. When you keep sleeping with them, you let them know that they could just give the bare minimum and don't take accountability for their weight, right? So they just get bigger and bigger because they know there's somebody out there willing to go to pound town with them. But if you starve them out and they're unable to find a man, I bet you they'll get in shit.
But she said basically to the guys, if you go out with these girls, if you sleep with these girls, they're not going to want to lose weight. You're encouraging them. They're not going to want to lose weight. As if girls who want to lose weight, who are battling their weight, are going to be like, oh, now that I'm getting some loving, I'm going to stay just where I am. Sometimes
that's not how life works.
now I can throw my hands in the air.
That's not how life works. Sex doesn't stop people from trying to achieve a goal. That's some pretty obtuse thinking for somebody who, I'm like, if you have an issue with plus size women, I would prefer you to put out a video to encourage them to lose weight in a more positive way, as opposed to going down that road and telling men don't have sex with women at all. That's their preference.
She might as well say, listen to you, the food stores out there, don't serve these women when they come in here looking for food. And to the restaurants, when you see a fat girl walk through the door, don't serve her, because that's only going to encourage them to keep eating. Let me ask you, one of the things that I've seen so many times in interviews, in books, just watching people, they talk about, for overweight people, men and women, but especially for the women, they talk about not having a lot of advancement in the workplace due to their size. They can be smart, they can be hardworking, but there's this perception that you're a sloth. There's this perception that you're slow. There's this perception that you are just not worthy of the position, that people are not you're not somebody to look up to. There are people who say that I know I could have gotten a promotion because I put in the work, but I know that the reason I wasn't promoted is because I'm a big guy, I'm a big girl. And what has been your experience with in the professional environment?
I've submitted resumes and packages into companies, and I've been shortlisted, and then we get to the visual interview. And the minute they see me, faces change.
You can see their face change.
There's a slight downturn in a smile. But it's not a frown, You can tell that there is a discomfort there, because there are some people who equate being overweight with a lack of discipline. Mm-hmm. And because if they figure if you have a lack of discipline in your diet, then you have a lack of discipline everywhere else. Mm-hmm. And that's not really the case. Sometimes your diet may be the only place that you have a lack of discipline, or exercise may be the only place that you have a lack of discipline, and you're more focused and driven in every other part of your life. But unfortunately, those companies don't get to see that, because you can see the workings in their minds, how they're already trying to figure out how to shut down the interview, or because your interview is slightly shorter than everyone else's.
I've read that.
And there's nothing you can do about it except keep a smile on your face and stay pleasant, because at the end of the day, you also don't want them to call you emotional, because women aren't the only people who are called emotional.
Oh yeah, men can be very emotional.
Yeah, but if you're overweight, emotion also comes, quote unquote, comes into play. And so you keep that kind face and you sign off, and you don't want to have that sign of resignation to say, oh, well, on to the next. But sometimes the look in all of your interviewers, especially if it's a panel, you can see it, and because I've had a couple of friends who, the Bahamas is very small. So there are only so many people who are qualified to do what you do. So sometimes you would wind up having somebody else in your field who's a colleague, who's a friend, do the exact same interview. And you just do a comparison of questions that were asked and demeanors and stuff like that. And you'd be able to just
deduce that it boils down to my appearance. Yeah. Another thing that we talk about, and this has been in the news for many, many years, people talking about when you're flying the friendly, but now these days it's so unfriendly skies, and the trials and the tribulations you go in. We've seen people say they've been forced to buy 2 seats. Listen, and you and I, when we had the conversation, because one of the things you talked about is you can kind of see the faces of the person who you're sitting next to on the plane. And I said, Vanessa, while I empathize with what you're saying, I also can relate to what they're saying, because when you're in coach is already incredibly uncomfortable, right? You're stuffed in a little tiny seat with no leg room. And when somebody comes alongside and they are sort of leaning into your space, it does affect them. You know what I mean? I certainly understand that. What I don't give right to is when people are incredibly disrespectful, incredibly rude, because I feel like there's a way to go about very quietly saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable in this seat, to a stewardess, to a flight attendant, and getting relocated or something. But that's not been your experience. So talk about, and we're running a little low on time, but just talk a little bit about like what you experienced the minute you walk on that flight.
This entire journey that I've been on this year, I'm super nervous about traveling on Tuesday to Vancouver. It's going to be the very first time that I am using coach and not first class. Mm-hmm. I made it a point when I started this journey to buy a first class plane ticket because I didn't want to have any negativity in my space coming on this kind of extended travel. And I got in, I asked for a belt extender, and I had my space. The people next to me had their space. Everything was fine. Because I've had good and horrible experiences with passengers not wanting to sit next to me if I have to have that divider up, because as far as they're concerned, I'm spilling into their space, mm-hmm. which I'm totally aware of, you know, but at the same time, there's nothing I can do if we are in a tin can flying 35,000 miles above the air for 1 hour.
Feet.
So yeah, 35,000 feet up, you know. And so I try to be as compact as I possibly can, not relaxing in my seat, because I want to make sure that I'm not offending them or making them uncomfortable, you know. And I've had instances where people have been very, very kind about it. I've had instances where people were very belligerent about it, and they would complain to the stewardesses 20 minutes into the flight. They can't take it anymore. They don't want to be seated next to the fat girl. They need to find, so the flight attendant needs to find somebody else who's willing to, especially if it's a full flight, find somebody who's willing to swap with that person, just to make sure that, you know, somebody's kinder sits next to me for the duration of the flight. And yeah, I feel for both sides. I understand both sides, you know. At the same time, there's nothing I can do about my weight in that moment. Mm-hmm. I can't suck all of that weight off of my body. Mm-hmm. And so I totally get why people tend to purchase two tickets. Mm-hmm. But even in that, sometimes you have plus size people getting cursed out because couples want to sit together and the seats are all taken. And so they're mad because they can't sit together because the plus size person just bought 2 out of 3 seats and there's nowhere else for them to be, you know, in the same row.
Like you can't win for losing.
Right. So what you want me to do? You know, so I'm kind of nervous.
What do you want? We have like 2 minutes left, but like, what do you want people to take away from this interview? And by the way, I have to thank you so much because, you know, I know you don't like doing these types of interviews.
Not at all.
You said this on my other video as well. But I really like just listening to you. I was like, you know, it's great that you're sharing this with me. But it's one thing when, you know, the person says it and then, people get to hear it from their mouths. You know what I mean? Like I could never tell your story the way you can tell your story. So I'm very grateful to you for even agreeing to this, because it's not a comfortable conversation. So, I mean, what do you want the great takeaway to be for, you know, individuals who are watching this today?
I think the best takeaway I can give is that life is a journey and your journey is personal to you. But I want people to realize that overweight people are still human. We still have feelings, and we have some struggles that most people don't take into account. And so just be mindful of that before you pass judgment.
Before I leave, I want to share one final story. Remember when Vanessa shared her story about flying the unfriendly skies? Well, when she was leaving out in DC, her experience was no different. So a day or two after our conversation, she was at the airport and she called me to tell me about her experience. And she said that while sitting in the lounge area waiting to board her plane, she saw a guy go up to the gate agent and tell the agent that he would be very unhappy if he had to sit next to that woman. The crazy part was Vanessa heard him. The gate agent didn't make a scene, but she did approach Vanessa to let her know that there was one more seat in first class, and she asked her if she would like to take it for free. That man had no idea, but his complaint that day was the reason why Vanessa's seat was upgraded to first class. Won't he do it? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. It's a bit different from what I have done on my channel, but I love bringing these conversations, these real heart-to-hearts to you guys, because I know so many people can relate, whether you're somebody who's struggling with your weight or you know someone who is struggling with their weight. I know that this is going to impact you all. And for those of you who aren't struggling with your weight, hopefully it'll just give you a little bit more tact when dealing with individuals who might be a little larger than you are. Anyway, I'll see you all next week, Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, right here on this Bahamian Gyal. Bye. Mwah.